What is up, you guys? We are here for our weekly alchemy message where we are just unpacking the work and how we're approaching the spiritual lessons for the week. So from the wild unknown archetypes, we have rotatio or rotation, followed by alchemical wedding. I have just been waiting for this card to come up because this is literally the season, the moment, the energy that we're in right now, the part of the process. Followed by smoke. And then we had these two cards came out together, which make total sense, which is vitriol, which was up recently, and sugar, which was up recently, right? And in the picture, like, these look like this like molecular chemical reaction happening. So look at the way that the spread is laid out in the photo at whatever point in the video that comes up, because I feel like intuitively it makes sense with our process. Like, it's almost like a visual display of what is going on if it looked like little, molecules and things popping off. All right, underneath rotatio or rotation, we have Four of Pentacles. Underneath alchemical wedding, we have Queen of Wands. And then under smoke, we have the Hierophant. So this is such an interesting way, and I love that there's all these cards here because they're literally like spelling out where we are in the process of where we've just come out of our high holy holidays. We've just completed Shavuot on Tuesday evening, which was the grand finale of the counting of the Omer, where our soul is essentially activated and upgraded to be able to draw near to the Creator and then receive the wisdom that we need to correct our soul. This is because of a window of time open that is left over from the time when the Israelites arrived at Mount Sinai. Moses went up into Mount Sinai, and the Israelites were given the Torah. And that was the first time that they'd been given this like divine inspiration, this divine words, logos, from the Creator. And so that was the birth of the first books of the Bible. And the reason why they were able to achieve this, to channel that level of a miracle, is because they were so full of absolute certainty and faith, because they had just come through, they had just witnessed the parting of the Red Sea. They had just come from the parting of the Red Sea. They'd been set free from slavery. They were, probably like, elated and high on adrenaline and just euphoric. And they were also like unified, right? They were still a team. They were in it together. They loved one another. They were in a sense of brotherhood, right? With the excitement of it all and the joy and the relief of being, set free. However, when they, spent a bit of more time in the wilderness, they grew weary and they grew tired of their manna, and they began to complain and they began to fight amongst themselves, and they became divided and separated and wanted to receive for the self alone, wanted to go back to Egypt, wanted to go back to slavery. So that's what introduced the calamity and ailments and chaos and what they suffered in the wilderness, because they kind of fell apart, and so they lost their affinity with the light of the Creator, and they cut themselves off from that protection and blessing. So we, as the collective souls of mankind, of the history of all man, we are like the collection of souls that's been reincarnating, throughout the ages. And so we are pieces of all the original source soul that ever started. And so we're all interconnected, and we're all still working off these past lives. And so every year, certain windows of time open up. And one of these times during the year is Shavuot, where the gates opened and the Creator completely was in unity and connected with the Israelites. Now, during that time around Mount Sinai, they were not experiencing any death or illness or suffering or injury. They were having miraculous healings and all sorts of things. So this time of year, it is a time of year where we have access to miracles that we don't necessarily have access to throughout the year, the support to reach them in any sense. So all of these weeks we have been doing the self-inventory, watching when the universe gives us triggers and challenges and tests, and we've been tweaking our perception about when we get triggered, when we feel ourselves becoming reactive. It's like, oh, this is not something to bemoan. This is actually the miracle of the manna. This is a gift to us so that we can see the darkness that is still holding us back. We've been talking about those blocks on the bridge that are holding us back from reaching our higher destiny. This is revealed in this reading, what exactly are the blocks that we're removing. So rotation and Four of Pentacles. Rotation is like going around in circles and circles and circles. And so through these triggers, we're getting to see, okay, what is my reflex response? What is my reactivity? What is my reactive behavior? Does this scare me? Do I get despondent? Do I get, short? What happens when I get flustered by life circumstances? How do I react to this? Do I want to fix it immediately? Do I fawn? Do I freeze? Do I flight? Do I fight? What am I doing? And so we are recognizing these patterns that, thank God, that we have this gift of them getting triggered, or else they would just lie there dormant. So it's good that we're going through a little bit of chaos right now, because it's serving our highest good. It's baiting our ego to come out and show itself, so we can correct that, so we can elevate and evolve that. So we're getting to see what patterns have been keeping us stuck. What behaviors, the reactivity, the effect consciousness. And now that we can see the pattern and the rotation, we can interrupt that. And by these defense mechanisms are placed there to try to give us some sense of security and control. But just like this picture, this woman is holding on to like this dollhouse version of the big house, right? I'm holding on to my small idea of my dream, of what is home to me, of what feels secure. So I want to feel some sense of control, and I'm holding on to my small dream, my small picture of reality. But what it's doing is it's keeping me locked out. See how I'm on the other side of the gate of living in the real. We're keeping ourselves too small. We're keeping ourselves too confined, right? We're not able to live in the manifestation of the greatness of what we're capable of, the full potential. So we're seeing what's been holding us back and getting in the way, and then the alchemical marriage is happening, where our lower self, our carnal self, that reactive self, that fearful self, the selfish, lazy self, the self we wrestle with, this, because we have this inner conflict inside. And so we kind of wrestle with ourselves. There's this higher side of us that's like, pulling us towards these grand dreams, or even if it's not a grand, big dream, maybe your dream is, all dreams are grand and big to us. It just, everybody has a different version of that, right? Your version might be creating the perfect home, and designing it and having the perfect garden and really creating that space for yourself and your family and a place to have memories and nurture and be safe. And other people may have other, goals and dreams that are grand and big to them. But there's this tendency in us, the higher self is like, hey, do this thing that your soul is desiring, right? And then there's this other part of ourself that's always working against us. It's always self-sabotaging. It's always foiling our efforts or procrastinating or causing us to avoid them to begin with, right? So through this work, through the transformation, through overcoming our darkness, what we're doing is we are cutting off the power of the influence that the opponent has on our egoic part of our personality that keeps us running. It's like instead of running on the ego's programming that's getting, messed with by the opponent's pulling our ego strings. We want to surrender our will to the influence of the higher self that's pulling us in that direction of revealing our greatest light, revealing our talents and our gifts and our fullest happiness and our real, the potential that we have to live fully, and fully express who we are, right? So we're restricting the influence of the ego and the opponent, and we are surrendering and expanding and empowering the influence of the higher self. And the higher self is the self that is directing us towards that divine plan, towards God's plan, towards God's vision of what we could be, right? So that is our fully pure, undefiled by programming self, right? The perfected, whole, complete. And it's like that self is within us. So we are perfected, whole, and complete. It's just that we have these layers of resin that we need to chip away and scrub away the negativity that's keeping that brilliance and resilience and radiance from shining through. Okay, and so our with the alchemical wedding is, and this is also the merging of the masculine and the feminine. So that is the intrinsic with the extrinsic, meaning the spiritual is being made material, where our internal change, our intrinsic healing and enlightenment and transformation is starting to become evident in our behavior and our choices and our ability to restrict our affected consciousness and our urge to reflexively react, and instead pause and choose with discernment and our sovereignty and our free will, connecting with the direction of source, creator. Hey, how do I want to show up? Not how does my animalistic instinct reflex have me show up, So alchemical wedding, when this occurs, then it's like the Queen of Wands here is our activated higher self. The Queen of Wands is both the lofty dreamer and the nurturing homemaker, the person who has all the warmth and the ability to entertain, like Martha Stewart. She's charismatic, life of the party, social, think Sagittarius. And then also, though, can have the energy and the stamina and the focus to also juggle her career ambition. So this isn't necessarily gender related, but this is the feminine expression of that. So this is that warm, nurturing, magical, adding that sparkle to life kind of thing. So this is us in our most charismatic, yes, queen self, I guess you could say, really achieving, getting it all done and making it look easy. Sometimes we're in that flow, right? And this is that cosmic flow, and we're just all right. This also reminds me of the proverb about the woman of valor, who has courage and faith for her household and wisdom, and is capable of not only being, providing a beautiful hearth and home, but also she's industrious and out there like contending with the merchants and acquiring fields, and she's like the mogul as well. So, or OG over here. So this basically is saying when we can get out of our own way and let this healing and this transformation and this up level occur, then that's when we're going to activate our higher self and become, the embodiment of that Queen of Wands energy. In the meantime, we have the smoke card here. The smoke card can talk about smoke being both enticing and a warning, right? And an alert. So the enticing smoke, sometimes we smell delicious, savory smokes that make our mouth water. And we're like, ooh, what is that? What's on the grill? Sometimes we smell spicy smokes that make us feel a sense of sacredness and mystical, vibes. And it's alluring and it's seductive, right? Sometimes it makes us relax and, it's an aphrodisiac, right? But then sometimes smoke alerts us to danger. Sometimes the smoke is saying run, but sometimes the smoke is saying, look over here, here's the fire, you need to put it out before it grows and it turns into a wildfire and it creates damage, right? I think this is the smoke this time because this is like these challenges coming up. If we can shift our thinking instead of being like, why is this happening to me? And instead being like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. I'm so glad I can see this so clearly so that I can, deal with it and heal this and face this and really transform this and alchemize it and get that healing, right? So all of these challenges that are coming up, tests, different ways that we might be, triggered or flustered or excitable, right now by the universe. This is good. This is the smoke showing us the unlimited or the unconscious beliefs or the unconscious defense mechanisms. It's showing us those patterns that we might not have seen otherwise. Now, this also has the Hierophant with it. So this is like learning and getting that enlightenment from looking back and like looking into the smoke, right? Following the smoke, going into it and doing something with it. And then it's like what we've learned from this and how we have elevated and transformed and transcended. This is going to help us shine the light for others and help us teach others. But for the meantime, like we are really learning about ourselves right now and learning about life and learning soul lessons. And so this is good. The Hierophant is like the high priest. It's also sometimes the teacher. It's also unity. This card talks about unity. And one of the things that is going to reveal the miracles that are available during the season is that we are unified within ourselves. We are unified with each other. And through that, we are capable of becoming unified with the Creator as well. And so the final two cards here are the alchemy that is happening. This is the assignment. This is the roadblock. So it is, we are turning our vitriol, our anger, our that ferociousness. We are turning that into sweetness. We are turning our bitterness into sweetness. But in this, we are gaining so much wisdom and discernment, and new life is coming. And there will be a flush of sweetness with this, that letting go of that anger is like taking those chains off and leaving Egypt, feeling so unencumbered and liberated and free without it. And so when we do this, when we can change this ferocious anger, into unity, into sweetness, into love, into courage, into creativity, into inspiration, all of the goodness in the world, all of the virtues that share affinity with the Creator, right? That is opening us up into our next chapter, into our next story. It's unblocking the bridge that is connecting us from our present self to our higher destiny and our higher self. So this is the bridge that we're crossing right now. And it's like with every little bit of anger that we can resolve and let go of and allow to dissolve within us, then that's one little step further that we get across that bridge towards our new and higher destiny. All right, you guys, that is all for tonight. We will be back tomorrow for our weekly romance oracle and tarot reading. I am working tomorrow night, so that will be on the later end than our episodes are sometimes. Sometimes on Thursdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays. Or no, I'm sorry, sometimes on Thursdays and Fridays. I can post a bit earlier because I am not working on those days usually. But this week, I am. So I will catch y'all tomorrow. Peace.